Welcome back. Today we're going to take this 1x10 piece of pine that I got at my local box store for $18 and make a really cool, unique step stool. Come on, I'll show you how. No matter if you're using rough cut lumber or some pre-cut lumber from the hardware store, I think it's always a good idea to get this as square and accurate as possible. The more you can get it smooth and square on all sides, the better off your project's going to be and the less headaches you'll have in the future. I'm just going to take a few minutes to mill this down a little bit. I'm going to get a straight edge on my planer. I'm going to run it through my table saw to get the width that I want, and then I'll run it through my planer a couple of times just to make sure I have an even thickness. Next, I'm going to cut a piece 11 inches long for the top of my stool. Next, I'll cut two legs, 9 inches each. And the last piece I'm going to cut is a 3-inch strip for a support piece that'll go in between the legs to make this thing solid. We'll save this piece for the handle that we'll make a little later. Next, I want to give each leg a little style. So to do that, I'm going to cut out a little curved piece in the bottom here. I found some Johnson paste wax. I like the curve, so I'm just going to trace around it and then cut it out. I'll do one full set of legs, and then I'll transfer my pattern that I do on this leg onto my other leg. Next, I'll roughly cut that out using a jigsaw. Next, I'll put a nice curve on each side using a dustpan. Now back to the jigsaw to cut that out. Now I can take the piece I just cut off and use it as a template to cut out the other side of my leg. Back to the jigsaw. And now I've got one leg for my step stool. Now I can take my complete leg and trace it onto my other leg blank and make another one that's perfectly the same. Pro tip alert, if you were planning on making a bunch of these in the future and selling them, you might want to save one of these just to have as a template. I'm only making one, so you know what that means. Back to the jigsaw. Now I've got them clamped together, so that can only mean one thing: sanding. I'm just going to sand each edge, maybe where there's a little overhang or where I messed up with the jigsaw. Hey, it happens. And try to get these as even as I can. Now back to the top. I want to round these corners off so they're not sharp. To make my lines, I found this old cup. I'll do that on all 4 corners. Do you know what's next? That's right. I'm going to cut these out using my jigsaw. Now back to sanding. Now I'll just use my sander and really sneak up on that line there. Can you guess what's next? That's right, routing. I'll use my 1/8 inch roundover bit to go over all the edges on my top step and each leg. And that just makes it look pretty. Next, I'll sand everything down with some 120 grit. Because I'm just going to paint this, that's as far as I'm going to go. Next, we'll do a little something I like to call assembly. I've marked the center line of each board. I'm going to use a scrap piece of 1x material as a spacer to space this from the edge of my board. From there, I'll just pre-drill some holes from the top and screw it and glue it. Glue bot, finger, clamp, center line, pre-drilled holes, screws. Done. And there you have it, a simple little step stool. But wait, don't leave. Let's add some stability to this thing. I'll take that little 3-inch piece that I cut off earlier, cut it to length, and put it in between each leg so that this thing doesn't shift and rack from side to side. First, I'll get a measurement. And remember, always from the bottom of your piece, not from the top. And now a quick word from the sponsor of this video, Ben Van Kirk. That's right, it's me. I buy all my own tools and I buy all my own supplies. So if you like this video or other ones that I've made, make sure you subscribe down below. Now let's get back to the video. Next, I'll trace out a decorative curve using an old roll of edge banding. And back to the jigsaw to cut this out. Next, I'll round over all the edges with my 1/8 inch roundover bit and do a little sanding. There you go. Glue bot. Finger. A little persuasion. Really expensive tiny woodpecker tool for square. Drill. Screws. Stability. More drilling, more screwing. A little more touch-up sanding and some paint, and you've got a solid little stool that'll even hold me. But wait, there's more. If you're anything like me and your back is always hurting, you don't want to have to bend over to pick this thing up off the ground. Let's add a handle. First, I'll take the cutoff from our original board and rip a piece down to 3.5 inches wide. Now I'll cut it 22 inches long. Next, I'll round off one edge. I'll use this can of Rubio Renew as my template. You guessed it, Jigsaw time. Then we'll sand it. It sort of looks like a giant popsicle stick. Next up, a random line. Here's a scrap piece of poplar that I can use to draw a line all the way down the edge. I'll do that on both sides. Rubio can to the rescue again. I'm going to trace around this to make the shape of the handle. This is a straight edge for my jigsaw, so I can cut down that line I drew earlier. And back to more sanding. Round over time. Again, let's get this attached to our base. I'm just going to cut out a notch. So what I'm doing is just holding this up in the middle, marking the edge of each side on my board. I'm using the thickness to see how deep I need to go with this. So I'm just putting it up to the edge and I'm drawing a straight line across. And that there is what I'm going to cut out. Japanese pull saw, fooled ya. Now I'll just add some glue and screws to this to hold it in place. Glue bot, finger, clamp, drill, screws. The last thing I need to do is add some paint to this. But you can see here, I've got a step stool, so I can reach the stuff on the top shelf, and I don't have to bend over to pick it up and move it. $18 and about an hour and a half of time, a couple of screws, a little bit of glue, and you can make one too. And just like that, it's got a fresh coat of paint. To finish it off, I'll add some non-stick tape so whoever's stepping on this doesn't fall off. Boom! Just like that, we're gonna call it done. And if you wanna see me make a really cool fly box, watch this video right here. Thank you, and see you next time.